Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing the tier list and really quick overview of the patch notes for 25.19. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the rest of the content as well. I am still streaming, although not as much as in the past, but I'm going to try to get back out there more, and I'm going to try to be more consistent with these patch notes and tier list releases like I used to do as well. But anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get in here. And I am going to try to do an updated guide about Rakan, maybe later today or later this week, at least Rakan, and then maybe a couple of other champs as well. Because I know I have a guide on Rakan, but it's probably like 6 years old or something at this point. Obviously, a lot has changed in terms of items and stuff like that. So we'll do an updated guide for Rakan and maybe some other champs too. But anyways, let's go ahead and get in here. And as always, I'm going to try to make this quick because I do have some other stuff I have to get to. But, you know, like I said, I want to try to get this content out to you guys. So, I haven't done one of these in the last few patches. I don't think the meta has really been shaken up too much, although I think that this particular patch is going to shake up a little bit about some of the items and maybe a little bit of the priority of some of the higher picks. And, you know, just for context, if you're new to the channel, I am these days like an Emerald support player. I peaked in Diamond. A couple of seasons ago I hit it, and then maybe 3 or 4 seasons before that I hit it. I've been playing since season 1. I'm an older gamer. So that's kind of my context. And I tend to skew a little bit more towards engage for reasons we'll talk about sort of when we get into the tier list. But I think it's just very important to be able to make plays and not rely on your teammates to make really good plays, especially when there's so many objectives that you constantly have to contest and set up for and all of that good stuff. But anyways, so I do tend to favor engage a little bit over more passive scaling type of picks enchanters. But I still am going to mention enchanters, and I still think they can be really good for certain play styles. So we'll get into that in the tier list in a minute. But okay, champion. So Ahri is getting quite a bit better. So we'll see if we see more of that. So that's going to be more mobility. So again, like easy to hit CC is going to be good against that. There's already a ton of mobility in the game, so, you know, if we start seeing a lot more Ahri, that's going to help things like Poppy, obviously, Nautilus with his ult, you know, that can track people really well, Rakan, where he can track, you know, pretty well and has some outplay potential, and it'll make other stuff that relies heavily on one skill shot, Blitzcrank, maybe something like a Leona, a little bit tougher in this matchup, but I don't think it's going to shake up the whole meta too much, but that's a pretty massive buff. I mean, 55 extra damage per R. She gets 3 of those. So that's a lot. That's a lot of extra damage. Brand, this is probably not going to matter too much. It might help out as far as like monster clear. The extra percentage here will help kind of solo lane Brand, but support Brand is still going to struggle a little bit because he doesn't get a ton of AP, is because you don't have the economy to do that. Although, again, there's lots of objectives now, so there's more opportunities for team fights, probably bloodier games than there have been in the past. So, especially at low reloads, you might actually be able to get enough gold for this to matter. But most of Brand's damage comes from his percentage-based health damage on his passive. And then he usually gets things like Leandre's, Blackfire, and stuff like that, that burn damage, which doesn't scale too well with AP. So, okay, nice little buff, but it's not as good as if it would have been like a base damage buff. Same deal here, so I don't think that's going to matter too much for Brand. I do think he's interesting if he's a jungle option. It's just kind of a squishy teamfight mage, because there's not a lot of those, I don't think, that come out of the jungle. Maybe like Lilia and a couple others, but anyways, okay, so probably not a big deal. Caitlyn, 2 extra AD, really not going to matter. I mean, this might matter for pro, because Caitlyn's always potentially viable for pro because she has a very good kit, but for pro play, mostly the range. But in solo queue, Caitlyn is just not it for most people. She's much more technical than people think, because if you're just standing there auto attacking, she's gonna, you know, fall behind things like Jinx, Yunara, just almost anything. So you really have to leverage that range and really play on the edge, get those auto attacks into the lane, know how to position yourself in team fights where you can get just in range to get your autos, but you're also ready to, you know, disengage and space people if possible. But she doesn't have any movement speed, she doesn't have any attack speed steroids, so she really falls behind on just DPS unless it's, again, later on in the game. Or if you're able to land snap trap combos, which, again, can be pretty technical. If someone lands on the snap trap, you need to not just get a headshot, but you need to get, like, you know, like buffer your net backwards, cue them, you know, while you're in the air, and then get like double headshots off and things like that. Like, it's very technical. There's lots of YouTube videos about it, but she's a lot harder to fully optimize than most people realize. Again, if you're just gonna sit there and farm in lane or occasionally hit somebody with an auto attack, she's not worth it. You really have to be all in and super sweaty to make Caitlyn worth it. So I don't think it's gonna matter that much. Phosphorus Bomb. I haven't really, you know, noticed Corki being that strong in solo queue. I haven't played a ton of games. Unfortunately, haven't been able to these days, but he's okay. He's a caster mage. I think he falls off pretty hard late game, just because, again, like, he's ability based. He doesn't have attack speed steroids. He doesn't have, you know, like a lot of movement or resets like Jinx, Yunara, things like that. So he's okay. But yeah, they're going to nerf him a little bit, I guess, for pro. It's fine. He does have fairly high prio in pro, so there's something going on there. He's got to be pretty good. But, okay, Diana getting a little bit of buff for the jungle. That's probably fine. Draven getting a little bit of love. Draven, I think, can still potentially be very good in solo queue, but you know, as always, he's very dependent on auto attacks. Honey, I'm trying to record a video here. Hello. Okay, you can say hello, but and then Whirling Death. So a couple buffs to Draven, that's fine. Okay, I don't think the items are super great on Draven right now. Like, Bloodthirster's okay. I think crit is kind of where you want to be, but Draven also really wants lifesteal because of how that interacts with his axes. He can heal a lot of health, and he wants to be taking trades early. Honey, okay. Daddy's trying to focus and do this. Okay, and then Jax getting a little bit of love there. I think Jax is already okay. I'm not sure why they're buffing him. I mean, they say it's pretty much for pro. That's very big early, the extra 45 armor. That's 20 more armor at level 6. So I don't know. We'll see. Pretty good. Jinx is getting buffed a lot for some reason. I think she's pretty good, especially in solo queue. I think she's played in pro some. But 100 extra range early on is pretty massive. Honey, don't lean on Daddy's arm, please, okay? My mouse arm. And then the Flame Chompers dealing a little bit of extra damage. So, I mean, yeah, Jinx is going to be really good right now. So stuff that buffs up Jinx, your Lulus, or can protect her, Lulu, Melio, Janna, those are the main ones that kind of come to mind that can buff her up and get her going, especially Lulu, are going to be really good. They're already pretty good, but Jinx is like one of their best partners. I want a couple of buffs, sure, it's not going to matter. This champ's really obnoxious in solo queue if she gets ahead. But if she does become more popular again, stuff with the lockdown CC is what you're going to want. So you're going to want your Nautilus, your Leona. Honey, okay. No, we're not going to go up right now. Daddy's trying to record this video, okay? And then Lee Sin, Lilia. No, here, hold on. Let me give her something. Sorry, guys. She just heard me talking, I think, from the other side of the house, and then just... I mean, she wants to come in and hang out and all that, but I know you guys actually want information and not me trying to situate her for the next 30 minutes. What do you want to watch? You want to watch some Vampirina or something?
I like Vampirina.
So I would have set her up earlier before, but I just didn't know she was going to run in here. Okay, can you watch it in your tent? I'll bet it'd be fun to watch it in your tent there. Look at that. Let me see. Okay, honey. I guess that's fine. Hopefully that's not too annoying. I don't think that's going to get picked up in the background too much, but sorry if it is, but that's just what we're dealing with. Okay, and then Lilia nerfing... No, they're buffing her. I was about to say, why are they nerfing her? buffing her up a little bit. I think that's good. Like I said with Bran, I think they need more squishy team fight mages in the jungle just for different comp diversity. So that's cool. Mel, little bit of buff. That's probably fine. This champion's annoying, but I don't think she's that good statistically right now for most people. Pantheon's getting some nerfs. That's good. I mean, he's super strong in the jungle right now, both in solo queue and pro. He just does a lot of damage early, and he just obviously has so much gank pressure with his ult. It's just really obnoxious to have to play around global ultimates, especially when there's like he can just come up the lane, right? You don't even like your vision in river, their jungle, whatever is not necessarily going to save you from Pantheon. So really annoying to play around, especially as an engaged support, because you just never know if he's going to follow up, you know, or like if he's going to counter gank you if you go in, unless you see him on the map. So anyways, glad to see him nerfed a little bit. Poppy is doing okay in pro. I don't know. I don't think she's OP. I just think that are they buff? They're nerfing her pretty hard. Max health damage to minions and monster. That's a lot. Especially early on. So her clear is going to be a lot worse. Her Baron's going to be a lot worse. It does not really going to affect her as support too much. But I think she's an okay counter pick. People really like Poppy. She's obviously got the circle thing that stops movement. There's a lot of movement in the game. So I think she has her moments. I don't think she's like hard dominating pro or anything. You know, she's got a 40% win rate. Now, I'm not sure if this is the patch that a lot of pros are playing on. Obviously, the solo queue is skewed more towards... or this tier list is skewed more towards solo queue, but I think it's interesting to look at how the potential of something at higher levels. So yeah, she's not even picked that much. I mean, she's mostly a counter pick again. She is banned a lot because people don't want to deal with her, I guess. But... 48% win rate, and then in solo queue, 52%. So again, like not horrible, not amazing, just like a pretty good counter pick in certain situations. So I don't know. I don't think they needed to nerf her, but this will hurt her in the jungle. Probably won't affect her as support too much. Although it will make people less likely to think that she's gonna go to the jungle if she gets kind of completely pushed out of that role, which. You know, if you're an early pick, that is an advantage of playing something that can go in multiple roles, is it kind of confuses the opposition and they're not really sure what they're playing against sometimes if you have those good swap picks. Okay, Seraphine getting some buffs. I think she's already pretty good. Now, this is kind of hard to understand, but I feel in small skirmishes where it's going to be 2 or 3 people, this is going to be way better healing, so especially in lane. But in like big team fights where it's 5-on-5 where you could potentially hit all 5 people with the circle, it's going to be less. So basically, you know, worst case scenario is 16% missing HP versus previously it was 5% if you were healing yourself, or with 2 people it'd be 10%, 3 people 15%. So I think most of the time this is going to be a lot better. So that's a pretty big buff, I think, to her, especially solo lane, like mid Seraphine, but even in duo lanes, ADC Seraphine or support Seraphine could be good. Boomerang Blade. Okay, so Sivir's getting some nerfs. I didn't think she's that amazing right now anyway. She's played sometimes. She's okay. Okay, now these are the big ones for support. So Redemption is getting nerfed like a lot. 50 HP off. Even at early levels. Now, you're not going to get this at level 1, and it scales based on level, but I think it's flat scaling, although I'm not 100% on that. I could look it up, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. But I think so, by the time you actually complete this, you know, with normal build routes, it probably would have been like 300, maybe 280. So you would have been like level 9, like halfway. Halfway in terms of like levels, like 9 is half of 18 type of thing. So I think that would have been 300 heal. So now instead of 300, you're getting 250 presumably. So that, you know, percentage wise is a lot. What is that, like a sixth? That's like 17%. So that's a very, very big deal on the healing. And this was already questionable. Like, a lot of pro players are getting this, even on stuff that has no plus healing and shielding. So that's like a completely wasted stat. Although they did nerf the plus healing and shielding a lot, so it feels like it's a little less wasted, because I think it's only 10% right now, whereas it used to be 20%. But still, like, you don't get any armor, you don't get any magic resist. The health is pretty small on it, right? It's only like 200 health. So I'll just bring it up. Like, it's got mana regen on it, so it's already very, very questionable as far as the stats. It has like some ability haste on it, but if you compare this to Locket, I think a lot of people are just brainwashed into going for Redemption when Locket is potentially better. Now, Locket does only have 10 ability haste versus Redemption's 15, but they have the same HP, but Locket has 25 armor and 25 magic resist. That's 1,000 gold worth of defensive stats, because armor's 20 gold each, and I think they've changed magic resist over the years to be the same. So, yeah, that's a lot. That's 1,000 gold worth of survivability stats. And many of these tanks, they scale in one way or another with armor, where they have a lot of extra HP, which makes the armor more effective towards effective health. Because obviously HP on a target that has 100 armor versus HP on a target that has 200 armor, the HP is going to be way more effective on the 200 armor target, because the incoming damage is going to be reduced. So, anyways, I've got whole videos about that, kind of older, if you want to know how that works, kind of the math on resistances and things like that. I could do an updated video on that too, but anyways, this stuff is very good on tanks. So I think it was kind of troll that stuff like, especially like Leona, you know, is getting Redemption, Braum, Nautilus, all of that stuff. Nautilus at least has a personal shield, I guess. But yeah, it's just really bad to begin with, because you're getting like no value out of these stats, basically, as a Leona, for example. And you're pretty much, 15 ability haste is valued at 50 each, which is a lot. It used to be valued closer to like 27. So, like, the true value on ability haste is probably something like 500 on 15 ability haste, and the health is also 500. So you're basically getting 1,000 gold-ish worth of, like, true value on these stats, and you're paying 1,300 for the active. So that just seems like really, really inefficient and bad. You see, even their numbers are pretty close to what I was saying, even valuing this at 50 each. They're calling it 1,200. I don't think it's worth 50 each. I think it's overvalued because of how Glowing Moat is budgeted. But anyways, if you look at like the components, things like Kindle Gem, that's where you kind of find the real value on ability haste, but which is about 30 according to Kindle Gem, because the health is going to be 500, and then the ability haste, 10 ability haste, would be 30 to get it to 800. But I digress. It's already very, very expensive to pay for this active. And it's not guaranteed, right? Like, you cast this, and especially in solo queue, so many people are going to run out of the circle, or maybe the support does it too late, or the support places it in the wrong spot, or whatever. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong. In pro play, it is going to be a little bit better, because you have comms, you can call out when to throw in the redemption and play around it and all that. But in solo queue, it's a lot harder to use. Now, it does have big range, right? Like, you can throw it from like halfway up the river to influence fights in side lanes and stuff like that. So that is useful, but again, that's going to be much more useful in pro play, where you can call for that, versus in solo queue, where it might be too late, people might run out of it, blah, blah, blah. So it's already a pro skewed item that is like okay in terms of its value. But especially, again, if you're not using the healing and shielding or the base mana, it's just horrible, like, stat valuation. Versus Locket, it just works. Like, the range is closer, but everybody gets the shield. You can't miss, right? And Locket does not get reduced by heal reduction. Now, almost nobody gets heal reduction these days. So, you know, there's that. But at the same time, it just works. Now, it is a decaying shield. So you only get like the max value for like half a second, or close to the max value for half a second. So there is that, right? For extended fights, this is probably going to be worse than Redemption. And Redemption does have this thing that people forget where it's 10% of the enemy's health as true damage. So that's really big, right? If it's like an enemy like Bruiser that has at least 2,500 health, which is pretty common, that's a 250 true damage. And when you take resistances into account and all that in the mid game, it's really like hitting them for 450 or something magic damage or armor that gets reduced by resistances. But because true damage doesn't get reduced, it's very, very good. So if everybody is balled up again in these 5v5 fights and the enemy is getting hit by this, like, it is still really strong. But losing the 50 healing is a big deal. The stats suck, for a lot of tanks. So I think the main thing here is I believe this is not going to be a great item on like hard tanks anymore. It'll still be good on Rakan because he can really use the plus healing and shielding. And he doesn't need the resistances as much because he's so mobile. And your usual suspects would still like this. Your Sorakas, your Jannas, stuff like that. But I think this is probably going to get it off the tanks because it already, again, was a questionable valuation proposition. I mean, the introduction of all of the team fighting things, all the objectives, does make Redemption a little bit better because split pushing is just a lot harder to pull off these days. More and more people just have to group for Atacon, or they have to group for Baron or third or fourth Dragon or whatever. So that does make this more useful from like a meta perspective, but I think it was probably overvalued on tanks because they're just so squishy. Maybe again in certain situations like Alistar, when he presses ult, he could probably get away with it. And he does kind of have a heal with his passive, but anyways. So, probably going to knock it off the tanks, which is fine. It really shouldn't go to them. I think what they should do to balance this out is just get rid of the true damage on the passive. That would be a much bigger nerf, but I think they should keep the heal and just work around that and get rid of the true damage, in my opinion. Okay. And that, because it just doesn't work. Why does it have that? It's supposed to be a healing, type of item. Why does it have this massive damage component to it as well? Okay, and then the other one that's going to affect supports is Unsealed Spellbook. Now, this is a pretty massive nerf to this as well, and this is another thing that's affecting engaged tanks primarily. So basically, the base cooldown, so early on, it's an extra half a minute, but more importantly, later on, it's a half a minute. And when you've gone through all your rotations of these spells, that's a lot. That's like 30% longer, right? Instead of 90 seconds, it's going up to 2 minutes. That is an eternity in cooldown timing. So I think most champs are going to get off this thing. It is already, again, pro skewed, because pros can use things like teleport a lot better. They can coordinate it than solo queue. And a lot of these sort of summoners you can get, frankly, are just not that great. Like early on, for an engaged champ, early on, obviously Ignite and Exhaust are good, assuming you're taking heal and flash as your like actual summoners. Then the bonus ones being Exhaust and Ignite, those are really good. But then from there on, it gets questionable pretty quickly. Like Teleport can be good in the right situation. Smite can be really good in pro play if it's coordinated, but they've also nerfed that pretty heavily. And then stuff like Ghost is okay, but not amazing in a lot of situations. Same thing with Barrier, like it's okay, but not amazing. Cleanse, depending on the situation. Most tanks don't care a ton if they're CC'd. I mean, it's nice on Rakan to be able to cleanse stuff. So they're okay, but at what point is that just not as good as having a Guardian that's just going to be there ready to go every fight probably later on in the game, or Aftershock, or just whatever else these tanks want to take. So some of them will still like it that just don't have a good rune to begin with. So stuff like Bard will probably still like it. Maybe something like Braum might like it. But I think if you have a good alternative, like Leona with Aftershock or Rakan with Guardian, you're probably going back to that. Okay, so let's get into the tier list here. Spend a bit longer, as usual, than I'd like on those things, but let's get moving. I still think Rakan, surprise, surprise, is going to be really good. I don't want to... again, beat kind of a dead horse here because I talk about that every tier list, and I will do an updated Rakan guide. But he's just so versatile. I don't remember, like, he's always underrated in solo queue. I think his win rate's like 50% or something. As you can see in pro, at least last patch, it was 60%. So, and this I think is what a lot of like the qualifying tournaments are on. They might be on the newest patch. I'm not sure, the 15-18. But either way, he's just very underrated, very good, great sort of one-trickable champion. I need to update my one-trick guide too. But people rarely pick him, they rarely ban him, and he just has such a great diversity of different items that he can pick from. So it's like, yes, the redemption nerf will potentially hurt him because he does like redemption a lot, but some of his biggest opponents in solo queue are some of these enchanters. So like things like Janna, things like Lulu, can potentially be tough matchups depending on the situation, and they also like redemption. So that's kind of a net potential positive depending on the matchup. Now, again, people are still getting redemption on him. It's about even with Locket. I would probably open with Locket first and then get redemption, just because the nerf on the redemption, the 50 nerf, matters a percentage-wise less the later the item is. So, for example, if you're losing 50 flat HP and you were going to be getting 250, well, that's a 20% nerf. So if you were to get it at, level 8 or 9, maybe it's going to be a, 20% nerf on the amount of healing. But if you get it later, if you get it second item, when its baseline would be maybe 300 health, then it's going to be 17% HP nerf, percentage-wise. So I think that makes sense. People are also just going to have more health. They're going to have more resistances later. So I don't know exactly how all that plays out mathematically, but it feels to me like you're losing less if you get redemption later, especially because, again, they're going to have a lot of resistances. So I would probably just go Locket and then redemption for kind of your team fight prowess. I really hate Zeke's. If you want to go, like, this item has just been nerfed into the ground, like, hardcore. It used to be 50 magic damage per tick. Now it's 30. So that was massively nerfed. And it just doesn't... I mean, in team fights, if you're sticking two people, if you're, like, right in the middle of a ton of, like, 3 melees, maybe it's worth. The slow is cute for, like, running people down, but I just don't think it's worth it. You do get an extra 100 health on it, so that is nice compared to Locket. So stat-wise, it is kind of a greedy, decent stat thing, but I just think that the passive just sucks, honestly. So I would stick with Locket and Redemption. Shirelia's historically has been an okay item, but ever since they took the health off, I think you're just too squishy. Also, they took off, you used to be able to shield people and get like a temporary little boost in speed. They took that off, so now it just has the active. So I just don't think it's worth it most of the time. Mikhail's can be extremely good in the right spot. The wiki here is wrong about Mikhail's because it does have ability haste. Or the whatever that site is, Lolalytics. So it is wrong on some of these items. But yeah, it does have the 15 ability haste here. So it's a pretty decent little item. Again, this has been nerfed a lot over time. I think it used to be a 20% heal. I know it was at least 15% for a long time. So it has been nerfed, but it is cost efficient. It does include mana regen, which is not a great stat outside of laning phase. But if you really need that cleanse, Rakan is someone who can get Mikhail's comfortably and still get some value out of heal and shield power. And that's just a theme with Rakan. He's engaged that can get Enchanter stuff and use it well, right? And Enchanter stuff is usually incredibly powerful utility items, but they make you too squishy for traditional tanks. But Rakan can do it. So he can comfortably get Redemption, probably still. He can comfortably get Mikhail's if you want that. Historically, he's been able to get things like Ardent Censer, Shirelia's, all of these like really good utility items. And there is like an AP variant of Rakan that I tried out a little bit. If you really want to be greedy, it can work. I don't know that I would 100% recommend it all the time, but if they keep nerfing the traditional support items and you just want to try to carry, Rakan does have good AP ratios. So Hextech Proto Belt is really good. It's kind of a rush item if you want to do that. It's got phenomenal stats. The extra movement, little dash is good. But after that, it gets kind of murky. I think the guy that I saw that did that, and he had a high win rate, is this dude that goes like AP Recon in Pro, or not in Pro, in like Masters, Challenger. I think he went Malignance next, which is a little questionable because you don't need the flat mana, but the ability haste and the hate fog is kind of cool. But I don't know what you would get as a second item that could be decent. If you need to get something like Morellonomicon, you can, but that's not an insanely good item. So AP's an option. I don't think it's amazing, but again, or if you have like a kill lane, you're duoed with a buddy, they're playing Tristana or, you know, something like that, Draven, and you just want to get some AP, I think that's probably the best AP option you could go. And then Knight's Vow is like an okay item as well if you want to go lock it Knight's Vow. They said they're trying to push Knight's Vow a little bit, but then they didn't like buff it at all. I think they should take off, I don't know, something like the health regen and just give it more flat health, because that stat is just so garbage outside of laning phase. It is handy against poke in laning phase, but it's so bad later. So you can go Knight's Vow for like single target protection, like Locket, Knight's Vow, Guardian, you know, could be okay. I think some secret sauce, if you're going Locket plus Redemption, is getting Moonstone next. A lot of people don't think about that on Recon. Obviously, people don't buy it very often. But, you know, the healing stuff applies to everybody that gets hit with Redemption and everybody gets hit with Locket. So if you're hitting 2 or 3 people with Redemption and you're locketing them in a team fight and it's spreading to everybody else with Moonstone Renewer, then you're getting these like massive shields and heals going on everywhere. And you already are going to, by that point, you're going to have your E maxed out. So you're going to have a pretty good shield by yourself. Like a Recon double E is a 280 shield. So that's a lot, because, you know, most shields are like 240. Like a Janna or Lulu shield is going to be about 240. And it's got a 1.4 AP ratio, so it's got like pretty good scaling with AP. So this is a pretty good item on Recon. I wouldn't rush it, probably. I mean, maybe it's worth thinking about replacing, just going like Locket Moonstone. I haven't tried that. Because again, this just works. Right, like it's always on. You don't have to worry about hitting people with Redemption. It's got nice ability haste. The ability power, I think, has been nerfed pretty significantly over time. 25 is kind of low. But definitely as a like your final big item, I think that it's worth considering in solo queue. So I don't know. That's kind of my secret sauce. But Rakan's still really good. He's got engage. He's got disengage. He's got peel. There's just so many ways you can play around different situations. And I would probably go back to the Guardian build. Like I said before, it's just so strong in the laning phase. And I would still stick with Ulti Hunter. Like your ultimate is a little bit longer of a cooldown than many other engage supports. And at 130 seconds base, but it's really, really strong. I also like Grizzly Mementos for later on in the game. Just having more sweepers to clear out vision around those key objectives is huge. Deep Ward is okay early. It does make it really annoying for the enemy support to clear your wards. And they do stay up a little bit longer. But you don't keep the wards, like, the thing is, a lot of times there are so many different objectives that are constantly popping up, you're usually having to replace your wards anyway. So you'll clear something on bottom, and then you need to go back to base, and then come out, push the lanes, and then replace your wards in a different spot top where something new is about to spawn, or to help out a split pusher in a side lane or whatever. Like, you're constantly having to replace your wards anyways every, like, 2 minutes, I feel like. So getting the extra time on the wards, like, it's cool, and that does help if you stay out on the map a lot. If there's just constantly stuff going on that you're having to run to. But, you know, if the game is kind of, if you're pacing and getting your back timings right, and the game's kind of going according to plan a lot of times, then you're going to be replacing your wards before you see the benefit from the extra time the wards are supposed to be up. Later on in the game. Earlier on, it's good. But once you get your ward item unlocked, I think this is a little bit less valuable, but it's still fine. I just think that Mementos for kind of that late game vision control is really handy. But both of those are good. Sixth Sense sucks, so never get that one, but the other two are fine. Okay, let's move on. Leona, I think, is going to be really good. And she has been good in general in solo queue, but I think especially because Now a lot of the redemption stuff has been nerfed, so now she can actually go back to getting things like Locket, Knight's Vow. I think that's where she wants to be. She scales really well off of resistances because her W gets um, extra resistances based on what you have. And for similar reasons, now she can get Aftershock instead of going unsealed. So I think that's just playing into her strengths. Also, a lot of the other tanks got their baseline armor nerfed a few patches ago. So like your Alistar, your Braum. I think Leona got it nerfed a little bit too. But she gets so much anyways off of her W, off of Aftershock, that I think she's going to feel that a little bit less than some of the other options. To some extent, she is a bit more of an extreme champ. Like, she does engage and she does it really, really well. But, um, if they have very good counter engage, like if they have a Janna, or if you're going to be weak sided, so if the enemy jungler is just going to sit on you the whole time, or if your ADC is just going to permanent push them into tower, you can't really pressure a lot in the tower. Leona really wants to hold the lane in the middle and just threaten to kill them, or just actually kill them a lot. So she has a ton of CC. She's very tanky. She can go in. She has a lot of cooldown, or she has very low cooldown on a lot of her CC, especially her Q. So she has a lot of uptime. So as long as she's just standing in fights, just auto-attacking, landing Qs, it's good. Now, against high mobility, she can struggle a little bit more because her R is very telegraphed and very easy to dodge if someone has a dash. But you are seeing, again, kind of the rise of Jinx, right, where she's getting buffed. Yunara is still pretty good, even after the nerfs. Caitlyn's getting buffed. She's technically mobile, but depending on your elo, a lot of people won't react fast enough to your R. So you really want to play her into those immobile things. Some of these enchanters that are immobile, you can really blow them up. So especially like a Sona, if you can get a hold of, something like a Nami, Melio, like some of these things have tools to try to break out. But she's really good at punishing enchanters or like immobile mids, Orianas, stuff like that. So she's really good. She has high uptime on her ult too. It's a 90-second base cooldown, so very good at just roaming around and just kind of raising hell in all these different lanes. So very good champ overall. I think a good beneficiary of the nerf to Redemption, the nerf to Unsealed Spellbook. She can get back to doing what she does best, getting the tankier items, and just going in and killing people. And especially if you're seeing more Dravens, more of these kind of like pressure lanes. She's very good with those champs and against those champs. So she's good. You just got to be aware of where the jungler is. You got to watch out for some of the global stuff. The nerf to Pantheon is also good for her because that's less people that are going to be interfering with your massacres in the bottom lane when you're doing Leona. Or if you want to roam up for things like Grub, she's extremely strong in those situations too. So Leona, very good champ. I think they actually buffed her passive damage a couple of patches ago by a little bit. So that's good too. Okay, Alistar is another one, really strong. He's getting played a lot in pro. He's not getting nerfed. The good thing about Alistar is if you're against double ranged in lane, he can actually survive those lanes a decent amount because he's got a heal. Many of these other engaged tanks, your Leona, your Nautilus, your Blitzcranks, things like that, don't have any way to sustain or help your ADC deal with it. Now Rakan does. He gets that shield passive that comes up every like 30 seconds or so, and he hits his Q. And I was talking on stream with people, and they're like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal with the Rakan Q." It adds up. If you just think about, if he just hits like one out of every 3 or 4 Qs, that's one every 30 seconds, and even at early levels, that's like a 50 or 60 heal. So if you're just hitting 2 Qs per minute, and it is pretty spammable, if you're just hitting 2 Qs per minute, that's an extra at least 100 health that you're getting, which, equates to 10 HP per 5 or whatever, something close to that. If you're healing for like 100 to 120 per minute, that's like 10 HP per 5. That's really, really good. That's like an extra like couple of reju beads. So Rakan does have quite a bit of sustain. Not as much as like a Soraka, but it's a lot for an engaged champ. So Alistar, I don't know the exact math on him, but he does, a similar amount of healing. I think it's every 3rd or 4th wave he does his little roar and heals for less than Rakan, but it's still pretty good. So he's got that, and then he's obviously got kind of his. Sorry, I heard a car door. Just seeing if anybody was here. He's got like sort of a point click sort of engage. As long as you get his combo correctly, the WQ is really solid engage. It's pretty fast. It can be dashed out of, but it's hard for a lot of people to deal with. And of course, he's extremely good at tower diving, and that's one of the main reasons he's almost always good in pro. Is as soon as he hits 6, he can just dive a tower and kill somebody. But overall, he's good. He is short range compared to something like a Leona, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, Rakan, all of that. I think his W dash range is like 600, so it's pretty small. But so you have to get good flank angles to get a lot of value out of Alistar, or you have to really utilize your flash well. But nevertheless, pretty good champ, very tanky. He can still go unsealed probably if you want to, just because once you pop your ult, it doesn't really matter how squishy you are. But one thing I noticed, playing Alistar over the last couple of days is, and that's the same way it is with a lot of these champs, when you go in, you're not getting out. So you better pick the right engage, because you will die in a lot of situations, and you're going down with the ship. So just be careful out there, but if you get a good engage, he can be really strong. But yeah, his big sort of unique stuff that he does is exceptional tower diver, good sustain in lane, pretty reliable threat even through the minion wave. People, if you get sort of an advantage in lane, people have to respect you and back off, or they're just going to die. It's very similar with Leona. You can go up and kind of play on the front, and if your ADC's with you, and just kind of bully them off of the wave where they can't touch the wave anymore. So pretty good. Okay, and then I've got Nami here. Nami is still a pretty strong champ. Obviously, she's going to be best with something like a Lucian, but she can be played with a lot of other champs. What is it? Okay, come here. Honey, we probably need to watch some. Go downstairs here in a minute.
No, I want pepperina. I want it anymore.
Okay, well, what do you want? You want this? Picnic?
No.
Well, honey, I gotta continue doing this. What do you want? Honey.
Oops.
Okay, well, hurry up. I gotta do this video. Why don't you just go downstairs and watch TV for a little bit? Want Grinch?
No.
Stop doing that. You want Super Kitties?
Oh, no.
Honey, pick something. Super Kitties?
That's what I want.
Big hair?
Yes, big hair.
Okay, alright, go watch it over there. Okay. Sorry, guys. Again, I was all alone in the office when I started this, and then she just heard me talking and wants to come in. Which is sweet, but at the same time, I know for you guys that just want to hear the information, that could be a little annoying. So sorry about that. But, okay, so Nami, still good. She can start fights, and I have to end this video pretty soon because I do have some other stuff I have to do, so we'll move through the rest of them pretty quickly. But Nami, if you hit the bubbles, she's great. So good against non-mobility champs. If people can dash through it and get on top of you, it's a problem. Your R is pretty good at stopping engage from a lot of champions. It's got nice range on it. It can actually speed up your allies a little bit. And she can play really far back, which is nice for an enchanter because you can cast your E on people. I think it's like 900 range. It might even be 1100. It's really far where you empower their attacks or their spells. So you can play super far back off of that. You can cast your wave on people. It is kind of a shorter range. I think it's like 725 base range, but you can cast it on your ally and it'll just kind of bounce around to everybody and give up buffs. And she has some unique items that really haven't been nerfed that hard recently. And I think she likes to go Mandate first for quite a bit of extra damage. And then I'm not sure really what she gets after that. She probably go Redemption, probably go Ardent Censor. There are several options she could do. But overall, still going to be a good, damage contributor that does have hard CC if you hit your bubbles. Can fight, can kill in the lane, and it has okay scaling into the late game with really good range. So I think she's solid. She does have a high win rate right now. Does pair together with some of the other really good champs in the meta. Okay, Lulu. Now you could still put Lulu in S if you want, and I would not disagree. Potentially, she's right on the border there. Her W did get nerfed a couple of patches ago again, so it's a very long cooldown right now. It's like 17 seconds, and that's the thing that either polymorphs somebody or buffs up their speed. But she's so dangerous when you pair her together with a hyper carry, like a Jinx, like a Yunara, Yumi, Twitch. Just once you get Ardent Sensor on her, and you're able to buff up people's movement speed and attack speed with a W, put Pix on them with the shield, which people forget. Pix, every auto attack, like in the mid game, is an extra 80 damage or something. 80 damage. It is a lot that her passive does. So anything that attacks really quickly is going to be doing just an absurd amount of damage with Lulu. So that's why she's so strong when you end up giving them like 50 plus attack speed off of Ardent Sensor plus your W, and you're giving them 80 on hit damage, and like it's a good shield, and your ultimate just makes it really hard to kill somebody. You know, she's one of the premier backline like buffers, pretty much. She's really, really difficult for people to deal with. Now, she does have fairly short range, so her shield is only 600 range, and I think her ultimate is pretty good. It's like 800 or 900 range, but the shield is very short. Your Q basically doesn't do anything later in the game, but a lot of supports have at least one lackluster spell. But early on, she can push pretty well with the Q. You just kind of, as soon as the wave's coming in, you just Q it, and then you've still got your shield ready to go if they want to counter engage. Obviously, you got to be a little careful with that depending on the matchup. But she can push with things like a Caitlyn, like a Sivir, Jinx, whatever. She can help push. But man, that champion is just really, really good if you have a high quality backline that you can protect. Just extremely difficult to deal with. One of the best like anti-assassin, anti-divers, because you got your ult for the huge infusion of health, the knock-up, which they did buff that knock-up a while back to be like an extra quarter of a second or something, which is a very big deal. And then, of course, the polymorph, which is still like a 2-second disable. Just overall, super strong champion. Again, she's low range. She can be bullied in lane if you're against like double range or like an AP champ or whatever. Pre-6, if you get engaged on by a Leona or, Blitzcrank, Rakan, any of these things, you can definitely get blown up. Or if you get caught out trying to ward. That's another big problem with enchanters that I think a lot of people maybe underappreciate, is that they have a hard time setting up vision later in the game, because if anyone's sitting in that bush and they just engage on you, you're dead, right? Versus if it's a Leona or a Braum or Nautilus or whatever, if there's just like one or two people in the bush and you have your defensive steroid, you can probably live through it. And if they waste a bunch of cooldowns on you, your team can counter engage and potentially kill them. Or, even something like Rakan can maybe get away because he's got so much mobility. But if you're a Lulu or a Sona and you're just trying to face check a bush, and they're in there, you're probably dead. So it just limits a lot of the vision options you can do. And then, of course, you can't make a play. If your team is just kind of, everyone's just staring at each other, just A-ramming mid, or just the enemy is just stepping out, right? Like the enemy enchanter is walking up and warding, and you're in that bush, you can't really punish it very much if you're Lulu. Versus if you're Blitzcrank or Nautilus or Leona, like you can go on that champ and potentially kill him if you got backup. So it just kind of limits your vision game quite a lot. You can't punish enemies for being too risky with their vision, and it is really risky when you try to get your own vision. But anyways, Lulu still super good. Sona, very good kind of pressure early with Scorch plus Airy plus your Q. You can put up a decent amount of chip damage. And you kind of stack up your ultimate over time. One of the best scaling enchanters out there. So if you just get to hang out near the backline and do your thing and just spam a bunch of auras, she's going to be pretty good. Now, they have nerfed her heal and her shield quite a bit over time, and they've nerfed the items that are really good on her over time, your Ardent Sensors, stuff like that. But still can be pretty good if you like playing enchanters. You want to put up a little bit of pressure early, is pretty good. Seraphine did get some buffs this patch. Maybe I'll put Seraphine a little bit higher, because I think Seraphine's still pretty good too. And then Nautilus, another premier engaged champ. The only reason I have him a bit lower than things like Leona and Alistar is because he's significantly squishier. He has much lower base stats than they do, and his defensive steroid is pretty bad compared to theirs. But his hook is very easy to hit, open field, just massive hook, very like crisp animation. And his ultimate is just extremely good. Undodgeable, can hit multiple people, is a knock-up, so it's not affected by tenacity. That's another problem with Leona, is she is kind of like Cleanse is extremely good versus her, and then Mercury Treads and things like that are also very good because all of her stuff is stuns. Versus Alistar has a knock-up, Rakan has a knock-up, Nautilus has a knock-up. So Nautilus very good if you want high reliability CC in team fights, really good catch potential. I mean, his great. It's just that his base stats, his defense is low, and his damage is really low. And his mana costs are pretty high compared to some of the other tanks for this day and age. Okay, and then we got Braum. Braum is a very good counter pick. So if they have a Leona, Nautilus, Alistar, all that stuff, Braum is really good. And he's very good with some specific champs, especially Lucian. As Lucian's double shot triggers Braum's passive better. And just any team that just has a lot more like auto attacks, Braum's going to be good. Obviously, he wants to line up and do front to back team fights and just kind of protect people. So that's good. He has problems if they have an enchanter because he can't really get access to their backline. So if you're staring down like a Jinx Lulu and, you know, they've got a Sejuani in front of them, you're just kind of screwed, right? If you're playing Braum, because you're not going to be able to stop that Jinx from doing her thing. I mean, you can throw, like, your ult has pretty good range, but it's very slow. It's very predictable. So it's like maybe you can hit them with your ult, but it's going to be very hard. So, again, if you're outscaled on the back line, there's just not a lot you can do to compensate, right? If you've got, I don't know, Ezreal or Lucian or something like that on the back on your side, and then they've got Jinx or Yunara or Twitch or whatever hyper carry with a Lulu, you're gonna have a bad day. So that's kind of an issue. He's very comp dependent. The stuff that he's good against is very popular, a lot of the engaged champs, but he really struggles, I think, versus enchanters or versus high mobility champions. And his CC is very slow and conditional, right? Like, it's good because he can put it on a ton of different people, but it takes 4 auto attacks to trigger. And by the time it triggers, sometimes the damage is already done. If it's an assassin that's going in to kill the ADC, they might die before they get the stun off. Or they might just dash away or whatever before you can get the stun off. So he's okay, but he prefers kind of slow and steady front-to-back team fights. Poppy, already talked about her a little bit earlier. Very good against mobility with her circle if they play into that, right? If they dash into your circle, she's good. She really has to get, I think, flanks to be effective. Sort of like Alistar. It's very low range, but that pushback, if you can get around behind people and push them, or definitely if you can tackle them into walls, she's going to be good. And then her ultimate can have a ton of value if you hit the right target and knock them out of the fight. But if you miss, or you hit there's not really a wrong target, I guess. Knocking into one of the fight's good, but it has a very telegraphed wind up, and sometimes that can make it very easy for people to dodge it. But depending on how much value you get out of her ult, how much value you get out of her circle, she can do well. She can do a ton of damage in the early game if she takes, kind of a bunch of cheese type of runes. If she takes the triple attack speed rune, I forgot what it's called, but that red rune where you attack faster 3 times. And if you can like pin someone into the wall, level 1, take ignite, like you can do a lot of damage and really like cheese people out early. But I think she really falls off and gets like hard outscaled later on in the game. Very similar to Braum. It's like the situation she's good in, she's really good, but against stuff that has much higher range or has blinks that aren't classified as a dash, like an Ezreal or things like that can get out, then she's going to have a lot less value, but can potentially be really good. And then finally we've got Rel. So she's okay. She's very short range, I think, for an engaged champ. In pro play where everyone's like tightly balled up, she gets a lot more value. But she's alright if you play her well. She just doesn't have any sustain, and she's just going to get pushed and bullied by double ranged. She has been nerfed a few times over time, but I think that she's still pretty good, especially if you're going to be strong side. So if you're like duoed with a jungler who's going to continually gank your lane, that extra speed up that she can get off of her W to kind of dash in and help other people dash in, that is really good. So if you have a lot of different, kind of mobility or just like movement speed champs, people that benefit off of that, then she can be pretty good. But if you're weak side, if you're just getting pushed in and just trying to farm under tower, she's going to have a hard time. Again, most tanks will, but at least stuff like Rakan and Alistar can sustain themselves and their ADC to kind of make it through weak side a little bit better than stuff like Nautilus or Rel. And then Blitzcrank, final few here. Blitzcrank, he does what he does. If you land your hook against an immobile target, they're probably going to die. That's great. But if you're hooking something like an Alistar or a Leona, Braum, there's a lot of stuff that is not going to be as effective. Or if you're trying to hook an Ezreal or just something else, Lucian, all these other champs that have dashes, it can be hard. So Blitzcrank, probably the most extreme engaged champ, super high damage, super devastating hook, really big hitbox, really big range, but devastating if you miss it. Very long cooldown, very high mana cost, and your other abilities just really don't do anything if you don't land the hook. So very extreme, but can be good. How it's been usually set up in pro when people pick this is they pick something that's a really long piece of CC that's like makes it extremely likely that you're going to hit your hook. So like Maokai Blitz, Maokai Jungle plus Blitz support is a very common combination because somebody's getting hit with that Maokai ultimate. And so that basically guarantees you're going to land a Blitz hook. Now, again, if they have something like an Alistar that can eat it, that's a problem. But otherwise, he's very extreme, but he can be really good in the situations that he's good in. Right? So against immobile stuff like a Jinx, Lux lane, you've got Draven Blitz, that can be very devastating. Okay, and Seraphine just got some buffs, so she's one of the better kind of like pressure, double range champs bottom. I have Sona up a little bit higher because I do think that Sona scales and it's just easier to get value out of Sona later, but I mean, maybe that's incorrect. Seraphine is similar, like more range with her ultimate. Her, 1W can be very strong for healing, especially after the buff. So, like, in bursts, I think Sona's probably, or Seraphine's better, but in longer team fights, like 5 seconds plus, where Sona gets off, like, 2 Ws, then she might end up being better. But both of them very good at team fighting. Seraphine pushes a lot better. So, I think she's obviously better in, like, the carry role is, like, ADC, not literal ADC, but y'all know what I mean. It's kind of the carry role in bottom or mid lane. But even as support, if you just want to push the wave with your Ws, or with your Qs rather, then, she can do that a lot better. Bard is pretty good. I think he's a lot better in pro, again, with communication. Your ultimate, you can really screw your team over if you hit the ult on the wrong people at the wrong time. So it's one of the more difficult ultimates to fully utilize in the game. There's a lot of creative things you can do with that. And he just doesn't have a great rune, so he'll probably still go unsealed, although it's a lot worse than it used to be. It's because he doesn't have a great alternative. And similarly, he'll probably go redemption, but it's nerfed. And he doesn't have a great alternative. So I think that just brings him down a little bit. But if you're really good at roaming around, good at hitting those ults, Bard can be solid, especially against those immobile champs, your Jinxes, your Yunaras, stuff like that. He can be good, because his ult also can't be cleansed. So that's particularly helpful in pro, where people might actually take cleanse or Mikhail's or whatever. It's not going to help you against Bard. So, anyways, he's still pretty good. Melio does have a good win rate right now. He doesn't buff up his allies a ton. He does have his passive, but it's not nearly as strong as like Lulu's picks. So he's okay. I mean, he's really good at team fight, undoing a lot of stuff the enemy's trying to do. So very good Moonstone user, really good with redemption, but it was just nerfed. So he's all right. I mean, if you're with an ADC that can really leverage that extra range of damage, like a Caitlyn or something that knows how to maximize her range with the W, it can be good. But most of the time, I feel like he's just not going to be doing a lot in the laning phase, and he just can't really start fights by himself very easily. But I think he's still okay. Nico's been nerfed a lot, still playable, decent AP, engage option. You can do a lot of tricky things with the clones, so it's handy. Janna almost always has a high win rate, very good at healing and protecting your Jinx or Yunara or whatever. I'd probably rather play Lulu because Lulu buffs them up a lot more, but Janna can definitely peel melees off of them a lot more. So Janna's kind of the ultimate stuffing melees champ, but again, you don't have any kind of engage. She can offer some okay pressure early with Comet if you still want to go Comet. I think Ares probably better, but there's some good options there. Lux, very good, kind of cheese pick if you just want to go like double range and just blow people up early. Lux, Caitlyn is obnoxious because whenever Lux lands her bind, Caitlyn should get a free trap combo. Jhin, very good. Jhin ult, Lux ult. So if you can just hard pressure, if you know you're going to be strong side and you're not afraid of being ganked a ton, or you just have like all winning lanes, she can just help your aggressive early ADC just hard stomp the lane, take the tower, and just move on. So again, probably best with like a Caitlyn or Jhin, but really good with other kill lanes too. Tristana, Draven, a lot of stuff like that. So very good early, falls off late, but still a good champ. Okay, and then Thresh. I have not been a huge fan of Thresh. Sorry, John. I know John loves Thresh. He's okay. It's just he doesn't have the sustain. He can get poked out. It's really hard to hit his hook. It is good if you get it, but doesn't deal. I mean, it does like okay damage, but it's got like the worst lineup wind up. It's like a half-second wind up. Really slender hitbox. He's squishy, especially early game compared to some of the other tanks. If he's getting like every single soul, yes, he can end up being decently tanky later. But he's really kind of like almost a peel champ with like a little bit of engage potential. So I think that he's almost closer to something like a Braum than he is like a Leona. Because I just feel like you're almost too squishy just to always go in. But he does have a ton of utility with that lantern. You can use it to bring the jungler in. You can save people with it. And his cooldowns are fairly low if you're constantly hitting your hooks in team fights. But it's just like you're just working so hard just to function as a champ. I feel like as Thresh, like you just gotta constantly hit the hooks. You have to have your flay timings right. You gotta put the lantern in the right place. People have to click on the lantern. Like, there's just so many like ifs and things that can go wrong, and there's just like no forgiveness, right? It's like, okay, so you could be playing Thresh, try to do all this outplay, and then you just run into Nautilus and he's just like press R. On the 80 carry, or I'm just gonna hit you with this fat hook, right? Open field. That's like instant, has like twice the width of a Thresh hook. He's got a lot more like CC when he actually gets a hold of you, like the animation. It seems like you're just CC'd forever, and then he's got the auto attack that CC'd. So it's just like, I don't know. It feels like there's so many easier options. So if you love Thresh, if you love kind of the challenge, if you love handicapping yourself, I think Thresh can be great. I wish he got some buffs. I think he's super cool. He's one of my favorite like designs champs. I just think his numbers and just like his feel are just kind of bad. Like it's just too clunky. It takes too long for the hook. The flay takes a little longer than it should. He just doesn't have enough like raw uptime on his CC for my taste. But he is really cool. So sorry, John. I don't think most people can use him well enough to justify playing him in solo queue. But he is very popular. He does have a good win. His win rate might be better than Rakan's. I don't know. But he's pretty good. Okay, well, that's it. That's all I have time for today. I really went longer than I should have, but I still think I can get done what I need to get done. But I do have to get out of here. I do have to start finishing up these other things. Are you saying bye-bye? You want to say bye-bye to everybody?
Bye.
Okay, she says bye-bye. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think in the comments. Come by, check out the stream. Again, it's hard for me to stream every night because I have to get up super early on days when I have school. I have to get up at like 5 these days just to get everything ready, get the kids set up, breakfast, all of that. And then I've got to travel, drop them off at 2 different schools and, travel to the next town over through traffic to, get to my 8 o'clock class. But I do try to still get on whenever I can around like 11:30 or so when Jason gets off work. But on some of the school days, I might try to do an earlier stream around like 8:30 or 9. We'll see. But yeah, and on the weekends, I should be available most of the time. But anyways, that's it. Come by, check out the stream sometime. You can always follow me on Twitter at the Strat Prof, the Strategy Professor, if you want to see when I'm streaming. I always try to announce it on there. And be sure to enable whatever the bell notifications or whatever on YouTube, because I only stream on YouTube these days. I'm not doing the Twitch thing anymore. So come by, check it out, have a conversation about League, about life, whatever you want to talk about. It's always a good time. And other than that, have a great day, and we'll see everybody next time.